And now to our first conversation. We see the Nigerian banking sector has been hit with a staggering 42.6 billion naira loss to fraudsters in the second quarter of 2024. And that's according to the Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents in Nigeria. This trend prompted concerns about security of financial transactions and the need for innovative solutions. Also finding out why we can't still get money, cash, at the ATMs at this point. We'll also be finding that why that trend still persists. Joining us for the conversation, we have Dr. Obio Haote, is the acting president, Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents in Nigeria. Joining me right here in the studio. Great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so, definitely let's looking at the sector, at this point, quite an interesting report there, even though concerning, yes, at this point, looking at how these fraudsters are still able to operate, in this market. But before we go into that, the ATMs are still empty. But it seems, the POS agents still have all the cash, at this point, regardless. What's playing out there?
Okay. Let me start from the first statement you made that the POS agents still have all the cash.
Right.
That is not exactly correct. Okay, recently we just concluded the national conference in Benin City, Edo State. And the CBN was there, and the other stakeholders in the financial sector was there. It was a big conference. And let me quote exactly what the CBN representative said, because this issue came up about the scarcity of cash. In fact, agents said that the CBN has to specifically explain why we can't access cash. So what it means that even the agents don't have cash to pay to their customers. So the truth about the matter is that the CBN representative, I think it was the branch controller of CBN in Benin City. So he said the CBN is doing everything they can to make sure that cash is available to the money deposit banks. But unfortunately, what happens between the CBN and the money deposit banks, and then in extension to the customers, is what we can't exactly explain. Because as you rightly pointed out, the ATMs don't have cash. And the same thing is applicable to agent locations. Right now, as we speak, we struggle to access cash. Even in my own locations, hardly can we access cash. And if you go to a typical bank today to get cash, you cannot get more than 10,000 in many banks cash. However, I think one of the reasons is because we are preaching cashless society. We cannot be preaching cashless and be encouraging people to do a lot of cash transactions.
But we should still have some level of cash transactions.
However, the extent of scarcity is something that is giving us concern, okay? Then many of the agents have resorted to several ways to ensure that at least they still have little cash to service their customers. And some of these ways include having certain collaborations with other financial entities outside the mainstream financial institutions. So that is the situation on ground.
Right, and I'm wondering, I'm trying to imagine a scenario where, the banks, the ATMs at the banks, start, giving out cash again like before, like before now, and, there's people have more access to cash. Who loses in that scenario?
Of course, the customers of the banks are the people that are losing. And then
if cash returns to the ATMs, like now I can go to the ATM.
Okay, if cash returns to the ATM, who loses?
Right.
Who loses? I'm sure you are not implying that it's the agents that loses.
I'm trying to understand who, in your opinion.
If cash returns to the ATMs, everybody gains. I think it's a win-win situation. Nobody actually loses. Okay? So, but at least I remember I have been an ATM custodian myself as a banker when I worked in the bank. Okay? I remember in those days we used to even kind of plead with the customers to go to the ATM. But these days, the customers actually will be queuing in the ATM and there will be no cash to pay them, okay? So I think it's something we really need to work at. That is in collaboration, both the CBN and the money deposit banks. Now, the agents, that is our people, have tried to at least bridge the gap to a reasonable extent. In those days, you go to the bank, you see a lot of crowd in most banking halls, looking for access to basic banking services like withdrawal of cash, deposit of cash. But now agents have taken up that role. So the banks need to step up, okay? At least make cash available. Just like we pointed out in the report we gave, over 300 local governments in Nigeria lack bank branches. Over 300. In fact, in many states in Nigeria, you can only have banks in mostly 2 local governments, the state capital and then one other local government that may be the commercial capital of that state. This is true. If you check so many states, I can give you examples, okay? So now, who are the people that are bridging the gap in some of these other local governments where there are no bank locations? It is the agents that are doing that. So the banks should step up to encourage the agents, at least by making basic services available for the agent, or the tools like cash and some other things that the agents need to make this. Otherwise, by the time if the agents are not able to continue bridging the gap, then the pressures will return again back to the bank branches.
Right, and I've seen some debates, on social media. Some say, maybe because the ATMs were not profitable, for the banks.
No. Like I told you, I've been a bank staff, okay, and I know so much about the ATM. I remember in those days, my branch ATM alone makes profits in excess of 10 million in a month.
And how much were the charges at that time?
The charges, okay, for on-us transactions then was free, but for not on-us transactions, that is for customers, sometimes I think it was about 30 naira. At a point, it get up to 50 naira and thereabout. I don't know what it is presently. But definitely, most ATMs are profitable. It is a profitable venture for banks. It is not as if the banks are losing by putting the ATMs there.
It's quite strange that they'll just let that business go. That's the banks.
Like I said from the beginning, somebody has to explain to us why. If you come to most of the banks, I have some of the bank managers as friends, okay? They will tell you, in all honesty, that they don't have cash, okay? They don't have cash. And I remember even in those days where customers, like when I was a banker myself, sometimes my branch, we don't have to go to CBN to bring cash. All we do is to take cash to the CBN, okay? Because we have a lot of customers that feed us with cash. But these days, you hardly see a bank branch that operates that way. Almost everybody is looking for cash from the CBN. So one begins to wonder, where are all the cash going to? So it's
this all started, with the former leadership, of the central bank. But it still seems to persist, under the Cardoso leadership. What kind of conversations are you having about that?
Okay, as an association, because I will just say the much I know, as an association, having access to cash is of very high importance to us, because that is number one key, access to financial services if you are trying to deepen financial inclusion. So we have tried our best to engage the CBN and then some of the deposit money banks within our locality, okay? So, but for the extent we have gone, I have seen that many of them are really sincere in trying to make sure that cash is available. But then when a bank cannot access cash themselves to pay customers, then what will you do? Okay? So like you pointed out, I remember the first time we had this thing at a very, very scathing intensity was during the time we were exchanging the old Naira, okay?
Right.
Yes, that was the time.
Naira redesign period. Right.
Yeah, okay? And we thought that by the time we are now using both the old and the new side by side, that the pressure will go down. But instead of it going down, it's even increasing. And now that we are approaching the Yuletide season, if something is not done, okay, then it will get worse. And let me even tell you upfront, many agents, because they are finding it very difficult to access cash, they are now planning to even increase the price of withdrawals at the POS agent location.
And I'm just wondering how much more consumers can take at this point.
That is it. Like I said from the beginning, the final, the incidence of all these things is on the final, the customers, the bank customers, the final consumers. Okay? And why there is need for agents to think of increasing the cost of transactions, that is particularly withdrawals.
But how much do you think these transactions could go up by?
Anyway, you know that for a long time now, the cost of withdrawals is relatively constant. It has not gone up in most places. At least I can tell you, in Lagos State and in some other rural locations. It has been like if you want to withdraw 5,000 naira, just 100 naira. In some places, a little less than that. If you want to withdraw 10,000 naira, just 150, mostly, at most 200 naira, okay? It has not gone up. And then a lot of things have gone up. The price of basic food, price of fuel, a lot of things, even everything has gone up. So, yet agents are struggling to still, be able to service their customers. But now, instead of having certain things within our disposal, like cash, for us to at least, if you can access cash, you can easily give it. But now, sometimes you have to pay. What I mean by pay is you look at transportation, then when you source the cash, sometimes you need to find a way to make sure that the person that is giving you cash will continue to give you cash. So all these things add up to increase the cost to serve. And agents are in business to make profits, of course, So that is it.
It's quite interesting how cash has become a commodity.
It's really
I wonder if I've seen this happen, in any other country, but definitely I'll do some more research. But talk to me about most of these, your report now, talking about, fraud in the banking system and how some agents are also being used.
Exactly.
With this.
Anyway, the figure you mentioned earlier, I think is 42.6 billion.
Right. 42.6 billion loss.
For fraud at agent locations, if you compare it with the previous quarter, it actually came down. But the ones that actually shot up the figure were actually fraud committed in bank locations, including check fraud, including web, cyber fraud, and then some frauds that are associated with just the bank staff themselves, scattering away money, because we saw that a lot during the time I was there. Okay, but for fraud that are associated with agent locations, if you check from the previous quarter, it actually came down. Okay, then frauds associated with card-related frauds, and then mobile-related fraud. These are basic frauds that you can see at agent location. There's some other thing could be all these kidnappers trying to cash out using the POS at agent locations. Okay, so we have really tried so much as an association in our awareness and advocacy, trying to talk to the agents, trying to reach out to them, trying to tell them. If you check, some of us are even in the social media trying to do videos to enlighten agents about the tricks of these fraudsters, trying to make them, because there are places you go to, you will even discover that some of the agents are stark illiterates. Some of the agents cannot read and write. They have just been taught to use some of the equipment like POS and some of those devices, okay? So the fraud in agent locations can only come down and keep coming down if we continue the awareness and the advocacy and the financial literacy and all that, okay? So then talking about fraud generally, I think it's not only something that can be solved at agent location alone. I think both the CBN, the banks, the fintechs, all the key stakeholders, including the law enforcement, particularly, they are very key. Because there is something we have done as an association in AMMBAN. So we came up with an idea that we called the JTF, the Joint Task Force. And the idea behind that Joint Task Force is to team up, collaborate with the law enforcement agencies in order to give them financial intelligence concerning our own constituency, which is the POS operators, okay? So when we have information about intending fraudsters trying to operate or anything related to that, we quickly bring in the law enforcement so that they can take action, okay? Then I think that collaboration should also be extended to some other key stakeholders within the financial system, because agents alone don't have the capacity to completely fight fraud. If you look at that figure, 42 point something
That's
billion,
a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
That have gone into
in just
maybe,
one quarter.
Funding your business.
It's a whole lot of money.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So much to unpack there. Definitely. And we're hoping this Yuletide season, we all have access to cash.
Exactly. Exactly.
Point,
and we, on our own, we are making plans as well, and we are equally reaching out to make sure that we have access.
And hopefully POS charges don't go up. Hopefully.
Yeah, we are working on that. But there is an extent to which we can go. Okay? So the best thing that can happen is for the central bank and the money deposit banks to make sure that at least there is reasonable amount of cash in circulation so that agents can work. But when we struggle to access cash and we spend so much money to make it available, of course, the price will go.
Because we're all in it.
But I can assure you that it will just maybe marginally. And not in all locations.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll definitely be looking out for that. But thank you so much. It was great having your perspective. Dr. Obio Haote, Acting President, Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents in Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.